word you use?
Spoilers.
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 Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers.
I like that word.
I thought you might.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Fan Theories. So this is a little extra side note fan theory I actually mentioned in my previous Fan Theories video, but people love the idea so much I thought I would make an entire video on it. So to summarise, the base side theory was that the Silent seen in the ship in the lodger had to have been killed by either Craig, Sophie, or Craig's ex-flatmate, Mark. However, personally, I think it was Craig, and so I'm now going to run through how I came to that conclusion. Mr. Holmes, stand back. Mr. Poirot, park yourself, and Miss Marple, prepare to marvel, because this is a murder mystery for Mr. Wolf to solve. Brace yourselves. This is about to get quite dark. Now firstly, let's narrow down our killers. 79 Aikman Road is in reality only a single floor flat. And whilst I'm sure many other people have come and gone over the years, at the time we're talking about, only 3 people would have been there consistently. Craig, Sophie, and the unseen ex-flatmate, Mark. Secondly, the Silence's body seems to be almost mummified, suggesting that it's been there for quite a while. And further dialogue in the episode would suggest that Craig and Mark had been living there for at least several years already.
This is Mark's old room. He owns the place. Moved out about a month ago.
With further mention that Sophie only met Craig about a year before the episode.
Who's the girl on the bridge? My friend, Sophie. You met her work about a year ago at the call centre.
So assuming that a Silence body exposed to the elements of sorts takes roughly around the same time to mummify as a human's, it means it has to have been there for at least 3 to 5 years. So on that basis, it makes it very unlikely that Sophie was the one to do the deed, which leaves us with Craig and Mark. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because all we know of Mark is that he used to live with Craig before a wealthy uncle he'd never heard of left him a load of money that enabled him to move out. Although dialogue in the episode would suggest this was actually intervention on the part of the Doctor.
This uncle he'd never even heard of died and left him a load of money in the will.
How very convenient.
So, I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest it wasn't Mark. Mainly because that would contradict my theory. Which of course leaves us with Craig, but when we start to look at the evidence surrounding him, it certainly does start to add up that he may have been the culprit. Firstly, as previously mentioned, he'd been there long enough to kill the Silent. And secondly, when he's asked if he's sure there was always an upstairs, his responses would seem to suggest conflicting memories.
No, there's always been an upstairs.
How did I think about it?
Yes. No, I don't.
So this would suggest that he had been living there since before the ship had landed, and thus he remembered it being a 1-floor flat. But because of the ship's perception filter, it made him believe there was more than 1 floor. Now it is at this point that we're left with 2 possibilities of the actual death of the Silent. One, that it was encountered in the hall and stairway, was injured and subsequently retreated to its ship where it died, or it was killed inside the ship itself. So taking these 2 ideas into account, and the Silence's ability to make people forget their encounters with them, I theorise that the first is far more likely to have occurred. You see, the ship needed someone to leave in order to leave itself, and if the Silent had been killed inside the ship, then the killer's one instinct would have been to get away, to leave, at which point the ship's autopilot would have drawn them in and burnt them up. When you couple this with the fact that Craig is genuinely surprised to see the inside of the ship, it would suggest, logically, that he's never been inside it before. So we know the where, and we know, most likely, the who. But the question remains, how? How did Craig kill the Silent in the hall? This is the dark part. In Day of the Moon, we see that the Silents can be harmed by conventional weapons such as guns.
Welcome to America.
So it stands to reason that if they could be pierced by bullets, they could be pierced by a blade. Or something similar. Like a key. What if the reason Craig is fondling Sophie's keys isn't just because they're Sophie's, but because holding the keys reminds him of something else he can't quite remember. Something which makes him feel safer having a pair of keys near him. I put it to you that one day Craig came home and found a strange being in his hallway and proceeded to defend himself with the only sharp implement he had to hand at the time. He manages to fight off his attacker, wounding it in the process, at which point it crawls off back to its ship and dies. Craig, meanwhile, completely forgets the encounter ever took place, but for some reason he feels safer having a pair of keys in his hand when he's in his own house. Alright, so I appreciate I put a lot of dramatic tension into this theory, so Let's summarise. The Silent had to have been killed by somebody in the flat, and due to the state of decomposition by the Silence's body, it had to have been a while ago. Sophie was seemingly not there at the beginning, so that rules her out. And we don't really know enough about Mark to form a hypothesis, so for that reason we rule him out. But given Craig's conflicting memories, the fact that at the time he was the only one who wanted to remain where he was, and the suggestion being that outside of work he wanted to spend more time in the flat than anywhere else, the only real logical solution and conclusion to come to is that he killed the Silent. On the plus side, I don't think the Shadow Proclamation will convict, because, as the old saying goes, if an alien that makes people forget it is killed in a spaceship that people can't see, and then the killer themselves forgets the crime ever took place, and then the entire crime scene disappears, well, I don't think it's going to stand up in court. Now, it's at this point that I would like to quickly interject a point which I accidentally edited out of the original video. Why Craig would kill on impulse like that. Where you see, the chances are that at some point Craig may have seen the footage of the moon landing in which the Silents tell the human race to kill them all on sight.
And every single one of them at some point in their lives will look back at this man taking that very first step, and they will never, ever forget it. But they'll forget this bit.
It's one small step for man. You should kill us all on sight.
And so by attacking and killing the Silence, whilst it might seem out of character for Craig, he is just acting on the impulse of the Silence's own post-hypnotic suggestion. But that brings to a close another fan theories. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot. Be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation and you can get involved. There is exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and funding my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you in another video very soon. Seriously, don't smoke, it's really bad for you.